Hello everyone, I am Rohit from the Optmyzr team. In today's Learn with Optmyzr session, we will take a close look at different ways to monitor portfolios, especially from a budget standpoint. We know a lot of advertisers generally face budget management issues, especially when you're handling multiple accounts spread across Google, Microsoft, Facebook, LinkedIn, so on and so forth, right? That is precisely the problem we will try and address in today's session. We'll try to look at better ways and easier ways to track performance. And at the same time, we will also look at how to effectively monitor budgets, set up alerts, all when you're managing them in a portfolio. So let's dive right in. This is the all accounts dashboard. And if you notice closely on the top right, I've turned on the portfolio view. If you turn it off, you will see accounts spread individually. But now what I'm doing is I'm actually looking at all my portfolios, and you can see that I have 3 portfolios already in place. But if you quickly want to create one portfolio, all you need to do is add a portfolio from here, and you can select. Before selecting, you always obviously want to name them. Let's just say I'm calling this test for the Google plus Facebook account that you have for one of your clients. Simply plug those in, right? So you can plug Google, Microsoft, and Amazon. Of course, I don't have any Facebook accounts linked at the moment, but if you do, you can obviously link those as well. And interestingly, please note that an account can be associated with a portfolio only once. And given that I already have portfolios where accounts are linked, this is why these are grayed out here. But in your interface, you'll see them available. So just check them and you will be good to go. Once you have your portfolios linked, or the accounts linked to the portfolio rather, you can select your currency, time zone, and who's going to be the manager, and you quickly save the portfolio. And that's about it. So I'll take this one as an example where I have a Google and a Microsoft account. You'll see that when I expand it, I get a complete overview of both my accounts. For account managers who generally have to run through multiple spreadsheets or to multiple interfaces like toggling between the Google and Microsoft interfaces, this is a great system because you get all of your data at a high level right in the interface. So you can see what's happening individually. Over here, I can see the impressions for Microsoft and for Google, but at the same time, I can also see what's happening at the overall level. So you can also see all the performance metrics I have plugged in here, like conversion rate, conversions, etc. But if you want to change this, tweak this a little, spice it up with metrics that are more important to you, simply choose columns from here. You can search for columns, pick them, add them. We also support custom conversions. That's one of the bigger pain points we often tend to hear from our customers, which is they don't track conversions as such, but custom conversions is how you track based on your business goals and requirements. So pick out the conversion metrics that are important to you and apply the changes. That's a tracking problem that Optmyzr has solved for portfolios. But now it gets interesting. How about I tell you that if you click on this button right here, which is your portfolio, you'll jump into a dashboard that is specific just to that portfolio. So I'm going to give you a brief of what you're going to see here. You can quickly obviously see the performance metrics, the same things we've seen on the other dashboard. You can see the breakdown that we also saw earlier. But now, as I scroll along, you'll see what are the top performing campaigns, keywords, or search terms for that matter. So you can see that Optmyzr brand campaign has been performing well for me across a bunch of platforms here. You can see the data based on cost. I can break it down by impressions, clicks, etc. So I can get a quick insight into where my money is going, where my results are. So that's opens up a huge number of opportunities in how you then drive strategic discussions with your clients. Similar way, you can see what the distribution is looking like. Right now, I'm spending about 90% on Google Ads and just about 10% on Microsoft Ads. And if I flipped over the narrative and instead of just looking at the cost, look at the kind of conversions I'm getting, it's interesting to note that I'm getting about 56% conversions from Google, but 44% from Microsoft when I'm just spending about 10% of my budget on them, right? So that's a great insight for me. Now, using this, I can tweak my narrative. I can probably push management to put more money into Microsoft because it's giving me the kind of results for this particular kind of account. So that's how you read the insights you get from here. And that's just one example. You're free to interpret it in a way that makes more sense to you. Now, we also have some quick suggestions broken down by individual accounts. So you can skim through them, look at what makes sense. For example, there are PMAX asset groups without audience signals. With a single click, you'll get some suggestions. You can add them from here. You'll see that there are a bunch of suggestions here. Pick the one that makes sense. Just go ahead and apply them. My most favorite feature, which is the AI assistant. Optmyzr is heavily inclined towards building AI features. We know that's where the world is headed, and here we are to support you on that front. You can obviously get some quick pre-created answers. For example, I have a question here which is around a performance summary. We already have a performance summary. So let me try this instead. Tell me which account is the top performer in the portfolio. So let's see what data it comes back with. So let's start reading this quickly. You can see that the top performer is being determined based on the return on ad spend, the conversions, and the cost per conversion. And from a performance summary standpoint, here's a breakdown of my Google and Microsoft accounts data. On the analysis of ROAS, conversions, and cost, it's telling me that the Microsoft ads is actually the top performer. And that's precisely what we read from a chart earlier as well, right? So from this chart, we also understood the same information. So this is a very smart AI feature we have in place. You can obviously ask custom questions. This is a great way to analyze and quickly get an overview of all your accounts. But now I'm going to move on to the more important aspect of today's session, which is the budget monitoring and managing aspect. So if you're managing multiple kinds of campaigns, for example, you have brand campaigns across Google and Microsoft that you've plugged in, and you have one kind of budget for your brand campaigns. You probably have a separate kind of budget for your competitor campaigns. Any such use case can be solved with Optmyzr. You could monitor the pacing for your brand campaigns. You can also get alerted about them when there are issues. So let's see what and how to get there. So hit the manage and optimize button on the left. You'll see the budget option. I'll walk you through a couple of tools here. The first one would be the dashboard. We have a specified dashboard for the budget management. You obviously select the portfolio from here that you've already pre-created. You can add your target budget. So I've added a target budget of about $27,000 here, and you can see what the pacing status is. And that's something you'll get here. I've only spent about 25% of the budget while I'm on the 10th or the 11th day of the month. So it's just telling me, or it's a good indicator that I can spend more. Here's a spend summary, how much you've spent, how much is remaining, so on and so forth, and what the projection looks like. And if I run my projection, it clearly looks like I'm going to end up spending just about $6,000 off the $27,000, which is clearly indicative of an underpacing status. So that's something I wish to correct. So let's see how I can do that in just a bit. And you can obviously share by platform based on cost. You can see the split here. I'm spending again more on Google and less on Microsoft. Also, an interesting insight, what does the media mix look like? Where is your cost actually going? If you look at that closely, you can see that I'm spending a good chunk, in fact, a great chunk on the search network. And then a good chunk is going into audiences and demand gen, not much in demand gen at the moment. But that's also a great understanding of where your cost is spread out, similarly, where your impressions or clicks or conversions are coming from. So quickly go ahead and check that. And you also have an account performance distribution, what the performance is looking like. There's also day of week trends. If you have any active scripts set up to manage your budget. So I have a couple of budgets that help me reach my target budget. As you can see, I'm not achieving my budget for the remainder of the month. So I want to ensure I hit my target. And this is a great script to look at. If you're interested, hit the configure budget script section, and we have help articles and guides that help you set this entire script up. Now, I'll draw your attention to something interesting. Now, if you want to track budgets in the form of alerts, right? You're managing your branded campaigns as we established as an example earlier, or you have some seasonal campaigns where you're strict on the budget that your client can spend or you can spend. How would you then manage such a situation where you obviously don't want to keep looking at data time and again every single day or every single hour of every single day? And that's when an alert of a kind can come into picture, right? So I'd simply hit the set up a new budget monitor option here. I'll be navigated into an alerts page. I can create the portfolio. I already have a portfolio, so I'm just going to select that portfolio and you'll see all the data just gets filled in. But you can obviously type in a new portfolio name, link accounts, or choose an existing portfolio. Now, the next step is how you group your campaigns or the budgets rather. Do you want to track the entire portfolio? So, do you have a single budget for all the accounts that you've linked under the portfolio? If yes, you got to select this option because any future campaign or budget that you're going to add is going to be considered in the tracking. But if you're looking at specific cases like the one we discussed a little earlier, which is I'm only looking at branded campaigns and I want to get alerted if my branded campaigns are exceeding more than what they are, what they've been allotted, or vice versa for the competitor campaign segment, for example, right? So you can easily select the competitors. For example, I have competitors here and probably a little below. So I'm just going to select those and I go ahead. But for now, for the ease of a demo, I'm just going to pick the entire portfolio and you can give this a name. It's a friendly name that you can monitor it for and give the budget. I had about 27,000, which is what we saw in the earlier page. So I'll just take the rough round figure. What are the actions you want to take? You know that this is how much you want to spend. You want to obviously be alerted when you're underspending or overspending, because if you're underspending, which I am currently, I know what actions I have to take to improve upon my budget management. But at the same time, if I'm spending beyond what I could be, I also want to be alerted. When do I want these notifications? I want them when it hits the 50, 75, and 90, and even the 100th% mark of the budget value, right? So these are a couple of options that we have here. You also can choose to pause and re-enable these budgets. So you can also tell us who should get alerted. There's a default owner. There's someone else who's the owner of this account. So they're obviously going to get alerted, but I or any other team member that I want alerted can be added to this system. And when I do that, this is how your alert is going to look like. It tells you what it's going to monitor, what is the target value, and who are the people who are going to get alerted. So there's an alert, you get alerted about it, you get notified. You can also integrate this with Slack or Microsoft Teams. So instead of an email notification, which probably can bombard you at some times, it's easier if you manage one of these platforms. You get the alert right in the platform. All right. So that's one quick tip. Alert management is a quick and easy way to manage your budgets. Now let's go into how to reallocate the values. Let's go back to our story of the fact that we're underspending. We have options and opportunities to spend more. So I'm going into the manage and budgets. I'm looking at the optimize and reallocate budgets. Right. So I've selected the portfolio that I want. And now you can create budget groups. If you're managing different kinds of campaigns under a particular budget group, like your branded ones in a group and your competitor ones in a group, or you have seasonal campaigns in another group, you want to probably track the pacing of each of them, which you can, right? So I have one branded budgets selected here. I'll show you how to create one in just a bit. But once you have one created here, you can see what the target budget is looking like. This is just a dummy figure there, but you can see your actual spend, what your pacing is looking like. So that's a great stat there. Let me just stop there for a second. You get budget pacing for each individual budget group under a profile. So if your pacing status is something that's important to you, this is a good way to monitor it in addition to the alerts that you've already set up in place. Simply hit this create view manage budget groups option here. You can create a new budget group. Let me just show you with the example that I have. I can plug a different number. Let's just say 1,000 for now. I want to get notified when the underspending or overspending is happening. The same alert settings that I just showed you. I can also obviously pause and re-enable the campaign. This is important when you are really strict on your budget. If you or your client says this is how much we can spend and not a dollar more can be spent, you can choose to pause the entire aggregate of campaigns that are hitting the budget the moment the budget has been achieved. So they'll be stopped for the remainder of the budget cycle. And interestingly, you can also restart it at the next budget cycle, which is what we're considering at the moment. So you quickly select the campaigns that you want to select over here under this budget group. Once you've done that, you hit save. So it's also very easy to add or delete budget groups. So feel free to explore that option. I'll just close this for now because I have it saved. Okay, now let's see what's the data looking like. So I can see my Google accounts, I can see my Microsoft accounts plugged out here under this portfolio. I can see what their daily budgets are looking like and what performance data looks like against the. I can see my impressions good on Microsoft despite low budget. This is the story we've noticed and observed so far across the tools that we've looked at. And I can add more metrics from here. If I want to look at conversion rate, cost per conversion, or any of the other metrics, I can plug all of these in. If I want to look at the impression share that's being lost or gained, all of that is also possible. So you add all of that, look at the data, and based on this, you can manually adjust budgets. You can reallocate the budgets based on a particular logic that makes sense to you, or you can get optimization suggestions from here based on a goal, right? So if one of your goals is to actually optimize for clicks or conversions or conversion value, you can select that. And if the tool actually has some recommendations to make, it'll show you those recommendations. So right now, I don't have any suggestions because I'm in a demo account. But if you look at this in your end, you will be able to quickly click on a button and you will see budgets automatically are reallocated and you simply hit the apply changes button, right? So you will see different budget groups on the left based on how you create them. With a simple toggle between each of them, you will be able to review the pacing of each of your accounts, how much you can spend daily for that particular portfolio of budget group that you have, and you can reallocate the budgets very easily across platforms, across budget groups. All of that is now possible with Optmyzr's budget management. I would encourage you to please write to support@optmyzr.com in case you have any questions. Our team is always there to help you with any questions that may come along. I'll just quickly, before wrapping up, show you one last tool, very recent update. It's called the Search Terms Engrams under Insights. Some of you are already familiar with this tool. We used to support this just for Google Ads earlier, but now we support this for an entire portfolio. So what's the idea of this tool? The idea is simply analyzing how your performance is across different search terms spread across your accounts, right? So you can group them by different words. Do you want it to look at a 1 gram, 2 gram, 3 gram, or 4 gram phrases? So let's just look at a 2 gram phrase, for example. Let's see how that loads up. Sometimes it can take a bit of a time to load because you're increasing the number of words that need to be processed. And there you go. And what kind of analysis are you looking to do? Are you looking to analyze based on the clicks, costs, conversions, etc., or the CTR, etc.? So now let's look at our cost, and I'll also break this down based on the kind of return I'm getting. Interestingly, the word that's the largest has the highest cost because that's what I sorted it by. And the word that's the darkest has the highest ROAS. So Google PPC here is the darkest of the lot. That tells me that gives me the highest ROAS while I'm spending the lowest cost. Great word for me if I want to target. And similarly, Google Ads, on the other hand, is spending the highest amount with the lowest ROAS. So maybe an indicator for me to pause or negate this particular term. Now, if I dive deeper, if I select the word, I can also see a complete breakdown of the cost and ROAS based on the search term that I'm getting across different campaigns and different accounts. And that is where the analysis really peaks, right? So now I know where does this perform really well? Does this perform well on this platform or the other platform, or in this campaign or the other kind of campaign? So this goes very granular in that sense. So you can now make changes based on this analysis as well. We also have this beautiful AI summary here. You get a quick overview of what's working, what's not working, exactly what we spoke about. Google PPC seems to be giving us the best return on ad spend with a low cost. So that's a great term for me to look at. And there's also a table data. If you don't want to look at it in a cloud, you just scroll down and you'll see the same information in a table and broken down by the performance metrics. So you get a more granular data over there. When you hover, it's one at a time. But if you wanted to look at all of them in one go, you can obviously increase the number of rows here and you'll see all of them in one place. So this is actually how you can use these different tools that Optmyzr now supports. We also support reporting on multiple accounts. We've covered that extensively in another Learn with Optmyzr session dedicated to reports. We know how big reporting is. So we already have you covered on that front. So this is the extensive kind of support that Optmyzr now offers for portfolio management. We'd encourage you to please go ahead and try these tools out and let us know if you have any questions. Thank you so much. Have a great day.